Hey everyone, welcome to the ufohub live stream. And today is open lines. It looks like we already have a few people in the voice chat for Telegram, and we've been chatting for a little bit. And it's always nice just to get in touch with everyone and seeing how they're doing and getting the voice chat going in general. For those of you who also want to join, it's the voice chat is in Telegram. If you can simply download the app on your computer or on your phone, install it. As usually you can sign up by phone number, or an email, and that should get you an account. Find the UFO Hub group, and you should be able to see us there. Today, I don't necessarily, as I've always mentioned, for anyone that just tuned in, we do not have a guest today. We don't have any particular topic. And I was kind of running late coming in today, so I didn't necessarily even prep anything new that might be out there to show to you. All I simply wanted to come in and just chat with all of you over Telegram, and maybe even look at some chat questions if there are any, and just basically hang out online. I used to do this all the time when I was in St. Louis, and but I don't get to do that very often. So this way, we're creating a online meeting, for lack of a better word. I This week and last week, as you guys might have noticed, it's been very busy for me in general, because I have a lot of things I need to do, with the family. My wife is due any minute now, and that was one of the reasons why I was late. She was having some pains, and we're trying to discuss. What do you tell me what you feel like? Do we need to go to the hospital now, or is this just one of those? What do you call them? Like these, they're contractions, but they're just kind of like those fake contractions, if there's such a thing. Although they hurt a lot. But the doc said if she doesn't, if she gets these strong contractions of at least 4 per hour, that's when she should come in. And she says she's nowhere close to that. So anyway, there's a lot going on. I was also I know a lot of times I don't get to discuss the environment here, but every time I'm streaming, whether I'm doing an interview or just chatting with you guys, it's very cold in here. It's about 50 degrees. I don't know what that makes it, 10 degrees Celsius, because the air unit has gone out a while back, and just today I received a new one, and it was the wrong one. So I thought for a little bit there, that I might have to delay this today or possibly Friday, depends on when the new unit will be put in. And so if you see me constantly kind of clenching my fingers, it's because they're actually cold, and I'm just trying not to jitter here. So anyway, everything seems to be streaming pretty good. Welcome everyone else that's in chat right now. And so yeah, join us. For those that are already in Telegram, if you would like to start out, please just raise your hand so that I can see it. Otherwise, I'll just chit chat and kind of interact with whoever else is in chat right now. Okay. So there's Bradley Cortez, welcome, saying hi everyone. R Sprockets, welcome. Deb R, welcome. One of these times, I might even ask you guys to take before your question, to actually also just put just a generic name, even if it's not your name, just something like Bob or Susan or something that I can just easily pronounce, because these names are very very colorful, but also difficult to pronounce, because half the time I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, or if anyone is getting their feelings hurt because of that. Oh yeah, and also for those that have been kind of keeping track, there's also, I don't know how many more days. There's usually this one gal in the chat room that always gives the countdown to how many more days are left for this disclosure that they had planned. Again, as I mentioned before, I don't think they're going to disclose much. And even then, they can't disclose anything that's not already declassified. So that right there tells you that there probably isn't much there that they can talk about. Mm. Um, Elk, Elk Rats, welcome. Stargate Traveler, welcome. Fabrizia, welcome. Seeing who else is here. All right, yeah, and for those of you just logging in, please join us on Telegram. We're just gonna, and any topic is open, anything metaphysical, spiritual, UFOs, aliens, you name it. This is kind of the show for that. And I know I apologize for those that just are very agenda driven to say, okay, what's now, what's next at this time and that time. This is the one thing that I just don't have any specific control for. So I'm just letting it go whichever way it goes. Oh, okay, we have Carlos. Okay, Carlos, you're unmuted. Start whenever you're ready.
Hey, thank you so much for the live stream during these times of your family matters. We all understand, the situation as you've explained. So, yeah, I just wanted to make some little chit chat until someone decides to raise their hand and decides to speak about their experience. I would encourage. I just went on your show probably 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, I
Just
think so.
yeah, so I just wanted to share, I decided to share my stories. I saw like a bunch of, I think 3 or 4 times that I've seen UFO, unidentified, right? The very first time, like I mentioned before, it was something that I could identify in terms of like that I could see the actual disc shape, and this was no drone, this was no plane. So I know that we call them unidentified, but we here in the UFO community, we have some understanding of some witnesses, or people who've actually seen something like that, right?
Right. I don't think like you said, I don't think the people in this community take it to be the literal unidentified flying object translation. It's basically anything. If we say UFO, it means aliens, flying ships, whatever. It's just like a general term. That's what I found over the years. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. I do agree with that. I want to be sensitive around the some of the people in the comment section in case someone gets triggered by that. But yeah, I wanted to talk just really briefly again until someone shows up and wants
Yeah,
to
sure.
talk. But
No, knock yourself out.
thank you. So if I have the time, I just wanted to talk about how, just like we human beings, we are living, entities. We have some people who have good mindsets. Others have some negative mindsets. I could only imagine with my limited mind that out in space, if there, I'm almost certain that there is life out there, that life, whether it be intelligent or just like just like us human beings here, where we seem not to be able to get off the ground yet. But I think regardless, any living entity, I think, has the potential to have that kind of mindset, either good or bad. Listen, I think I know in Native Americans, they believe in this thing called the good dog and the bad dog within your own mind. So sometimes we tend to listen to the bad dog barking away, and it's easier for us to get carried away with these kinds of negative thoughts, right? So just tying it down with the UFO is that I do think that there could be negative entities, and there could be also very positive entities, and I'm sure maybe some of your listeners or maybe yourself have interviewed people who've talked about these good beings, and or I don't know if you heard about the reptilians or the gray aliens. I think I might have heard actually from your own channel. So yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say that.
Right. It's interesting. I hope you don't mind me sharing, and I mean, at least I followed what you were saying, and I'm not. I don't think I'm switching any subjects here. So if I am for that, I apologize.
No
But now
worries.
you said
No.
the reptilians, and there was something that actually just I thought about this today. Out of everything that I could possibly thinking about, there was one particular experience talking about how I always said pay attention to your dreams because, sometimes your dreams, are the kind of your subconscious working out of the day's events and whatnot. And a lot of times you have to kind of write them down because there's a lot of symbolism. It's too strange trying to figure it out right away, but if you write it down, come back to it later, it makes sense to you in a different ways. But these other dreams that I consider communications that are very straightforward, very there's nothing confusing about it, it's very clear, right? um, so I found myself, I can't remember obviously when I fell asleep because I doubt that I was still sleeping, but I found myself just staring down, or at least looking into eyes of a being. And the more tried focus on it, I realized it was a reptilian, right? And I immediately started freaking out and kind of backing up from it because it was very menacing to see. There was nothing
Mhm.
that it was doing to threaten me in any way, but it's a kind of like being too close to a snake or crocodile when you realize like, oh shit. And but what happened was something that I didn't expect. Like I could just sense and also see the facial expression of just kind of like. And for those that are just listening, it's kind of like an annoyance or disappointment almost, where you kind of smirk like, oh, not this again type feeling. And then as I was backing up, he was backing up and he had a full suit on, full, I guess, full space suit or whatever it is. It was just a one piece, and it was kind of walking in this weird way towards this egg-shaped thing. And that's when I started thinking, it's so weird because in dreams you don't usually get to do that. Not that it's impossible, but I was rationalizing my experience. I was looking at like, what in the world is this? Like, why am I seeing this? And then he seems to be like walking this really weird way. It's almost like seeing an alligator walking upright, but with longer legs and shorter tail. And
Mhm.
anyway, he just kind of turned around and kind of sat back into what looked like an egg with three fins, which my understanding was this is some kind of craft. I said, but it can't be. It's got no rockets. It's too little to carry any kind of long term fuel. But anyway, he sat back into it. It closed down into. The door closed and it was seamless. You couldn't see where the door was anymore. It was just basically an egg, and he just kind of flew up. What surprised me the most then, as I was looking up, I saw even larger, what I believe it was, I guess would have been their ship or something that he was flying to, but it was also very large and egg-shaped, and it was glowing bright yellowish and brownish colors. And so I was just amazed that how could I not immediately pay attention to that, because it was right above me and hovering so low. And as I was paying attention to it, it just kind of this telepathic message came from it, and it was just kind of a greeting. It wasn't a word, but if I had to translate it into words, it would be kind of like hello or greetings or something along those terms, because it wasn't auditory. And I just freaked out to look at something that big, that large, and be self-aware or have consciousness. And this was like way back when I was still having all these weird experiences and trying to make some sense of it. And then of course I just got up from my bed. And then again, I wasn't tired, I wasn't yawning, I wasn't any of that. It was almost as if I just you know was traveling wherever that is. And so anyway, I'm sorry, you just reminded me of that story again when you said reptilians, and I just felt like I needed to share it, and I figured why not now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think we all enjoy really like listening to these kinds of experiences, whether they're in, dream form or, real life. But
Right.
I do want to say that I've had some pretty vivid dreams, and I don't keep my journal right beside my bed anymore, but I used to just a few months ago, and it's very interesting. I don't know if I would say, I would only say beneficial only if you're trying to look back and seeing how much you've progressed in terms of, your life and experiences that have shaped you to be, where you are now. But I do see the importance of writing things down. So really good on you for writing, or for keeping a journal, and especially with these vivid dreams. I know I had one, and I'm going back to. I don't know if I can share mine right now. I wrote it all down as soon as I woke up from it, but it was a very vivid
That's the
dream.
best
So if
time.
I'm, yeah. So if I may just share just one entry of
Yeah, no,
mine.
please go ahead. I mean, like I said, this is all of us just chatting and hanging out online, and you're the only one that wants to speak at this time, so you have the floor. And if anyone else wants to say something, please join us. Otherwise, you just stuck with us.
Yeah, again, I encourage people to just come forward and don't be shy. This is a community-based chat or podcast. So, anyways, this is from March 4th to the 5th. So I actually make titles for these entries, and I call it "Swimming in a Crowd, Finding Something, Trust and Follow the." Finding something out, trust and follow the dolphins. So let me get to it. I woke up from a very intense dream. I saw myself in a world where it was clear. By the way, these entries are, I've never really shared them with anyone aside from like my significant partner. So just bear with the writing style and so on. This is very personal. So
Understood, but thank you for sharing.
yeah, thank you. So I saw myself in a world where it was clear to me that I could see people suffer and not knowing how to control their emotions. And I put in parentheses my cousin and my dad. I guess I saw them in that vivid dream, what I would call a lucid dream. Later in my dream, I found myself in a place full of people with different goals in life. However, at one point, we were all in a boat looking for a missing person, and we were all told to say something repeatedly, or everyone was just saying the same. Example, we are trying to find you times 10. But I snapped back and I knew that I should be praying, and so I did. After this, we were all swimming in a pool, and some of us were diving deep for some reason. I would see myself telling two girls that I wanted to meet a girl who was rich in spirituality and beautiful. This was after, sorry, this was after they approached me, telling me that they wanted to set me up with a girl. Bear with me again, once again.
Sure.
When we were swimming, I would see some people look at parts of the pool where it was completely black, deep waters, and scared to swim or dive by it. However, I continued to perform dives with tricks. I remember that I dove with an intention of diving deep down. I dove deep down, and my dream all of a sudden changed in a way that I was able to recognize I was I was under control in a physical slash mental state. It seemed as though we were all in a simulation. As I came back up from the dive, and after floating for a bit, I felt a magnetic pull so strong it was out of my control. I looked around and yelled out loud, asking if anybody had felt this pull. Two people felt it while the rest didn't. The pull happened again, and I noticed visually. So I guess what if I can remember, it was like very magnetic pull in within like a swimming pool or a lake, as I was trying to describe it, and I felt like we were all kind of being dragged towards this, uh, wherever this magnetic force was coming from. So I'll continue on. Some people being moved by this pull. At this point of my dream, I came to feel as though I was aware of something I wasn't supposed to know, and all of a sudden, everything, quote unquote, turned off. We were all disconnected. I felt like I was conscious, but I drowned in the pool with everyone else, and I could not do anything about it. As I thought, a, as I thought a blink went by, I found myself awake, now in land. It seemed as though we were part of a huge world, of a playhouse where our actions, were predetermined or somehow controlled, but I was free to roam around within the same consciousness I had before the disconnection. I walked around seeing a boy and a girl interact, the one talking something, sorry, the one taking something from the other, affecting each other's emotions. At this point, I understood that I was in full awareness of consequences, abilities, knowing reactions, but I did not do anything. I forgot to mention that while at the pool with everyone swimming and after the magnetic pull, I told everyone that I was at one point observant from, sorry, I told everyone that I was at one point observing from a glass above them their actions and how they had consequences. And I warned them that I thought they were somehow being controlled. So that's like that was the end of my entry. And when I
Right.
woke up, I didn't know what to make of this really, but now that I'm reading it and just trying to make sense of these kinds of dreams, I can only just share what I think about it. Right? Many people can just say, oh, this was just a weird, you're swimming and whatever kind of dream that you had, weird,
Right.
right? But
Right.
to me, it's like very like introspective. Like I see our consciousness as a whole, we're being dragged, from here to there, kind of like a pendulum swing, right? We're being told these things, and sometimes we're, uh, deviating from in another way. And so I started to actually dig really deep down the rabbit hole in terms of UFOs and agendas, and some people would call them conspiracy theories, right? Now, this by doing this, you can actually get yourself into a state of mind that can be very disturbing, especially when you find out, for example, there is a thing called Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030 or 2050 or something like that.
Right. Right.
Um, I'm not sure if you're aware of
Yes, I
this,
am.
but okay, so yeah, so if you go down those kinds of rabbit holes, you can actually really play with, like, those things can actually play with your mind, just like, let's say the media can tell you a story, and that can actually impact you in a way that it impacts your whole body in a sense, right? If you put something in your mind, some kind of a fear, let's say, so like for example Agenda 21 or something like this, that is kind of like scary to know, like, is this real or is it not real? It can definitely affect your not only your mind but also your body. And so anyways, just reflecting on this dream, it's I'm trying to like dive really deep down and trying to find the truth within what we call the consciousness, where we're floating in or where we're stationed.
Right.
So
Well, I think
yeah, so
if I might add, when it comes to dreams, this is not anything particular that I can point you to somebody, I guess, that can talk a bit more intelligently about this. But just from
mhm,
my personal experience, I found that when I was, like you mentioned earlier, just being into spirituality and trying to understand what this is all about. When it comes to dreams, it's a lot of the unresolved feelings and emotions that are still playing themselves out. And of course, with the brain, being developed for what it is, it has to represent something that's visible, and so of course then these different pictures, they seem weird, but it's those pictures is what they represent to us regarding a specific emotion. Now of course there's like a I believe there's like a general what you call it, like I'm missing the words here, general dictionary for certain emotions to be linked with certain imagery, like
mhm,
what do snakes represent in dreams, what do certain animals represent in dreams, and they kind of these different dream interpreters, I'm sure they can kind of break it down and tell you all about it. um,
mhm.
oh my goodness, what is the word, like a universal symbol, that's kind of true for everyone, so that if you have dreamt about um, certain animals, that doesn't matter where in the planet you are, that animal has the same meaning to you, same representation of what it represents, you know
Yeah,
and
I
then
understand what you
but
mean.
right, and then there's some that are very specific to you, that's the challenging part of having to figure out what does that emotion mean at that time. I've been I interviewed it was called oh my goodness, I can't remember anything today. Let me look it up. Is basically he got into dreams long time ago, and he David Ravinus, that's his name. David Ravinus, he's I think a author of the book is Always Dreaming or something like that. Maybe not. I'm butchering it right now. But what I'm trying to say is that he kind of discovered through psychology and how he started out that there's this connection to what's actually happening in real life is also a representation, in the same way that a dream would be. So that if something happens in your waking state, that is sort of a symbol to you, and that needs to be looked at. Something that most people like myself and others kind of discover when they get on the spiritual path, not really connected to any kind of field of study, like psychology, and something that you discover after, a DMT trip or ayahuasca or whatever, where you realize that you are always dreaming, and that everything that happens to you, for example, before everything happened in my life to just kind of snowball into this whole new direction, I was, let's just give you a stark comparison. I was
Hmm.
single, living by myself, where I was working in a totally different town. And this one particular event was I was driving, and out of nowhere, there was nothing I could do about it. A deer just jumped up and hit the car, hit it, and it went over the windshield. And I pulled over, and it had, I believe I broke its spine, and it had, it couldn't move. And I felt horrible. I felt horrible, and I called, I guess, the people that, I guess, I called 911. They sent somebody over, and the cop literally just asked me, said, "Do you want to meet?" And I was like, what? I was more distraught of I just heard something or someone, and he's, looking at it as, no, like, as deer meat, basically. It's like, I'm going to kill it and take it somewhere else. If you don't want to meet, this is what's going to happen. And I was kind of shaken by the experience, but also just kind of confused by the questions he was asking because he's so nonchalant about it. Anyway, so I said no. I was able to get back in my car, and I started going back. After that, everything in my life changed. I moved to Arkansas, met my wife, got the new job, all of it, like literally a 180 in my life. Not that where I was going was any bad. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just the deer, later on I learned, symbolizes a great change. And you want to talk about a great change, but just having the deer, head on smack the car, and now of
Hmm.
course you can say, well, there's so many deer out on the road. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of people that, hit a deer with their car, and it's like that doesn't mean anything. But when you have that understanding that that's what that means, and you just personally take it into your life and see how does this, work for me, you'll see an actual, representation like this is valid for you. Now, of course, if you want to be a naysayer, you can, of course, talk it away and have some kind of excuse. But that was pretty interesting because, I was already kind of started to become aware of that because of my experiences. Like, it messes with your reality. You kind of start realizing, well, existence is like a dream upon a dream upon a dream. Every
I
time
was gonna
you,
go there too.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was gonna go there too. So,
Right,
this dream, sorry, this life potentially being a dream, right?
right.
Not, anyway, sorry, go continue.
Right. No, I mean that's exactly what it is. So I've been kind of paying attention to that in those terms. There was in the interview that I did with David Ravinus, he gave an example which was pretty interesting. It's about a gentleman that had some health issues, and I believe something with his diabetes, right? And he came home and he had some marmalade that he really loved to eat. I believe it was orange marmalade or something like that. And he had brought it home, and the bag broke, or something somehow happened to where the marmalade had fallen down and splattered everywhere, right? And so I never really, at that time I didn't think twice about it. I'm like, okay, cool story. But then he broke it down for me to where, what does the flow represent? What does the marmalade with the shards of glass inside represent? You know, the diabetes and the harmfulness in your bloodstream and all this other stuff. You see what I mean? And he just was breaking it down. I maybe not doing it justice. Maybe I'm butchering something, but you can watch it on ufohub. It's David Ravinas, and it was interesting to just kind of know that there's someone that for those that are there's different people that always start out a spiritual path in different ways. You know, sometimes they started out with ayahuasca, sometimes they started out by just simply being a student of psychology or something, you know, or, you know, they're driving a truck one day and the next thing you know, they want to understand why they're here and what this universe is all about. You know, so obviously there's all these different ways. But what's interesting is that he, or at least I don't know, I didn't ask him, he didn't do any kind of drugs or LSD. I don't want to call them drugs. There should be a different word for those because, you know, to I don't know
There's
what else. Say that again.
psychedelic substances.
Right, but I'm talking about that all these words come with negative connotations. You know, there should be like a different word
Uh,
for it. You know, just something because a lot of my experiences, I mean, I've never experienced like a lot of times, you know, they always afraid of the side effects of what it does to you. And I'm like, well, excuse me, everyone that knows my story, there were 7 different instances where I purposefully and specifically went to try these different psychedelics. And, you know, I went from not knowing what I'm doing, where I'm going to literally uh, straighten up my life, starting a business, you know, and having a purpose, you know. And it's like
mhm,
I wish maybe occasionally, you know, someone would, you know, have a chance to take some LSD themselves and just kind of have that experience, you know. But then again, I'm not. There's just a suggestion, not saying you all should go out there and do it. But what I'm
mhm.
saying is, I didn't see any side effect of it. It's like it made everyone that I've personally met has literally given them a drive in life. You know, and mainstream would not want to look at those in that way. They always want to attach a negative connotation to it.
Yeah, I have personally experienced with mushrooms, magic mushrooms, whatever you want to call them. I've also experienced with marijuana. And obvious, not obvious, sorry, but I've also experienced with alcohol. So I'm free, like I'm not doing any of those three anymore. But I definitely have my own take on it, right? In terms of what it does to me personally. Or I mean, you can go really down to the Google research and try to find out how these three different I think alcohol and sorry, marijuana have like these suppressing things within them. Whereas like magic mushrooms, they what they did to me, as opposed to suppress my feelings and so on, they actually enhanced every aspect of those, I guess, feelings and some vision and I wouldn't say hearing, but more vision, and so it actually affected my brain in that way.
Right.
Actually, funny enough, that is another way aside from you seeing UFOs, is that's how I also got myself into spirituality. So like you said, some people go through different ways. My way was through witnessing uh, UFOs and also trying some magic mushrooms and also acid. I only tried acid one time, but I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone. If anything, for a better word, I think magic mushrooms, because they come from the earth itself. You can literally just pick it out anywhere where you have the terrain for it. But these things can be called remedies. In some cultures,
Yeah.
they used to use them a lot, right? And people have experiences with them. So I've heard of many positive and also negative experiences. With me, I think it really does have a lot to do. This is what I think. I guess it has a lot to do with how your mind is currently. When you're going to take them, like your mind, you really have to be in in the best state of mind to be able to do that. Otherwise, if you're in a negative state of mind, if you have something in the back of your, let's say, subconscious mind, I think it can definitely work, not so much for your
Right.
benefits. Because
Right.
I think that it's just it enhances, right, whatever feeling that you're going through.
Yeah, you
Again,
almost
my
you
just
almost want to
opinion.
have the mindset of I want to be on a journey, or something like that in those terms. But it's funny because a lot of times before, because the way it started out for me is like, okay, I made this decision to, figure out, okay, is Bashar, full of it, or if is there something to what he's saying, right? And so when I was working on this stage, I call it my changing my beliefs, where I was going through everything, looking through friends and environments and places and things I was doing, just simply looking at all my belief systems, at everything that I was interacting with, right? And so that's one thing that was very strong that just kind of hit me. It was like, well, everybody keeps telling me, the drugs are bad and I'm a good boy. So I'm going to follow exactly as everyone says that I should do, And then when I was going through this process, I was like, why am I believing this? Here I am going to be this middle aged man. I'm going to be old and die eventually. But, what do I have to show for it? Laying on my deathbed going, well, at least I followed the rules like everyone else said, or what I should or shouldn't do. And so the thing is, I agree with rules. The point is, this is something that would have absolutely and entirely only affected me, physically at least. You know, and so I was like, why did I just buy into that belief system? And it kept pushing it forward. And so anyway, what was interesting is when I had the opportunity to kind of then start out my first time, I went to up to my friend and, was kind of, always everyone always knows that one guy that you can go to, he's got everything you want. And so I was talking to him and he's like, okay, well, here, try it, here's this LSD, and he's like, you know, he was telling me these things about don't do anything you love while you're on it. I was like, why? He said, because if you eat something you love, it's going to taste so good that, when you eat it again, it's not going to taste the same. I was like, okay. And he's like, if you love doing something, don't do it because it's going to be so great. Because then when you're down from it, he just kept talking about these very literal steps, right? And so I'm kind of like thinking, oh, okay, well, I'm going to feel funny and things are going to be accentuated and all this other stuff. Boy, was I wrong. Because when I consider my very first trip, it's like when that happened, it was literally like the universe said, sit down, I'm going to show you how things really work. And that's when I realized that this wasn't just an accident. I was meant to start this out. And there was a specific beginning and ending to this. That's why I keep referring to the 7 times, 7 times, 7 times, because I didn't go beyond those 7 during those different lessons. But what was interesting is that each one of these, whether it would be mushrooms, LSD, a weed, um, um, DMT, um, and others I can't remember right now. Each one of them you can achieve naturally, but it wasn't clear to me before that. It was only once I went there and realized, oh, this is what you have to do to get to this state and understand it. It made perfect sense. But you know, that's what was stuck with me. It was each time. It wasn't a, I'm just gonna feel funny or you're just gonna feel weird or laugh or whatever. It was the literal lessons that I would need months after each trip to dissect and realize, like, oh, this is what the Big Bang was about. This is how time works. Oh, this is what consciousness is, and I'm part of it, and all of this. And it's just basically, I mean, you couldn't help yourself but just go through this whole process of just self-reflection. And you couldn't, it wasn't, I never ever looked at it as like, oh, let's just do it for fun. Because every time where I was taken, every time something happened, it would change my life. It almost like the whole core of my being. And so I never took it lightly. Where I almost envied my friends that could just, I can't smoke weed. I smoke weed. I literally go into a trip and I'm gone for hours and come back with some amazing information. And so I never took it lightly to just be like, use it recreationally because it's just not possible for me. That was after the first time I learned that, and I left it be at that. So anyway,
If I if I
yeah, go
may
ahead.
just with exactly with what you're saying right now, I pulled up a quote here by Alan Watts. I'm not sure if you know who he is.
Yes, I do.
Uh, okay, so the quote goes, "If you get the message, hang up the phone. For psychedelic drugs are simply instruments like microscopes, telescopes, and telephones. The biologist does not sit with eye permanently glued to the microscope. He goes away and works on what he has seen." So that ties in, I think, from my perspective with everything that you're saying, that sometimes, if we open our doors, or our possibilities to these experiences that a lot of people are saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, we only limit ourselves, right?
Right.
But the moment we actually start to experience these things of oneness, for example, this is what I personally experienced through the mushrooms, right? I felt like I was, in connection with everything, that everything was like alive and just like waving and doing this spiral dance. I understood that I was like a part of all of this. Like, I understood that living beings, uh, it includes, like trees, it includes anything that lives, through the same means that we do, right? Like
Right.
light and water. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's interesting, and I don't know if you had these experiences too, there is nothing else but consciousness. So everything you're interacting with, it had to be created out of consciousness. Therefore, everything else is conscious. But we play these different games to where, you're going to be you, and I'm going to be me, and this table is going to be the table, and everything else around it. And so I'm just going to interact. Basically, you're interacting with yourself all the time, but playing this game that you don't remember, you know? And
Mhm.
that's the basic, real quick to the point premise of what's really going on. I don't know if you ever got to that stage or understanding, or if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, 100%. It's the stage of remembering, sorry, forgetting and remembrance. I
Yeah.
think this is what I've gotten to in terms of my spirituality, or my belief system, is that we have forgotten that where we come from, or what we are actually made up of. So I can give you an example. There's a rock, and then there's me. We're both made out of the same material elements. However, the rock is not conscious, but I'm conscious. So I've gotten to a point where I've now seen living entities for what they truly are, and that's like spirit form. Not, the science itself can only speak up to a certain point, but they don't dare to go into the I don't know if I want to call it metaphysics, but it's like the other realm, or the antimatter. They do talk about it very briefly. I think science has also said something about antimatter or dark matter or something like that, but they haven't. We haven't, as a whole, we haven't gotten much studies from that other realm. But I do feel like, there is a spirit side to where we're at, right? We may see material things, but we're not the same as those material things. We have these material bodies, but that doesn't mean that we are just chemicals interacting with each other. We have something more than just the rock. We have the consciousness, we have the intelligence, we have feelings, we have all these other things. So yeah, like
Right. Well, like
the
that's why I was asking. I don't know if you had the, if you got to go that deep to get that experience too, but everything, including, I mean, I'm being serious when I say including things like inanimate objects, they're because there's nothing outside of this consciousness, right? And there's no something else outside of it. It just knows itself as this energy. Now, that energy vibrating in different ways creates these things that we recognize as physical,
Mhm.
but it is still created out of it nonetheless, and that is, and it's only on a certain, like, I don't know if you've ever listened to some of the other like coast to coast. That was years ago. Some, this person was talking about how well they understood, technology, and they were working with airplanes and all this other stuff. And I don't know who the host was, whether it was George Nori or Art Bell, but they asked them specifically, said something like, "How do you know to fix this plane?" or something like that. And he said, "The plane tells me." Like I can tell, it tells me this is off with me, this circuit here, and so on, and to him, that connection that he had, it worked, and so whether you want to call it crazy or not, it allowed him to do his job, which was, which then obviously years later, with my own experience, I finally understood what he meant. Because anyone, I guess, for lack of a better word, a normie, but I don't know if that's supposed to be a condescending word, but it just means to encompass everyone that is not into these things, into this what we are. To them, they wouldn't understand it because they wouldn't see the train of thought. They wouldn't understand, like, how do you connect consciousness with the table? They're like, I don't get it, I don't understand, and they'll only look at it in those terms.
Yeah, if we want to, I mean, speak about something. So let's say for the first person that thought about, an airplane, like we're talking way back, and what the thoughts that came along in actually building a plane. I can only imagine, the person might have seen, a bird fly, and he could have gotten this idea, but the way that he mechanically went through the process of putting things together, it's just, to me, is mind boggling, right? I don't know, that's like something to play around with, right? Like the
Yeah.
idea of where ideas come from.
Well, in the United States, everyone probably knows it was, well, from the United States story. A lot of people here would say there was the Wright brothers. They used to own a bike shop, and I forgot
Mhm.
exactly how they, got to that, what the inspiration behind that was, but they were kind of the first ones to, to start meddling with that, using bike parts to create different shapes and try to get, make a plane to where they can fly through the air. Now, of course, if you're talking to people from South America, I believe it was either individual or two individuals that are from Brazil, and that was pretty interesting because of the Olympics in Brazil, when they had those, you know how they always have these huge intros, and there's this huge show that they do and whatnot. They
Mhm.
actually showed an airplane flying with this individual in it, and I remember the NBC moderator said, "Well, they believe that this person, blah blah blah, first invented airplanes," and he kind of left it at that. And I was like, oh, that was, I never really thought. I mean, of course I've known that other inventions came from other places, but I always associated that only during this time it was the Wright brothers. But apparently, very close to each other, the Wright brothers and this individual from Brazil were developing the airplane almost at the same time.
Yeah. And speaking of the Wright brothers, I don't know if you heard about this. It could be just speculation at this point, but I think that in the what is it, the robot that they sent to Mars, apparently
The
they put a
Yeah,
cloth,
the Mars
right?
rover.
Yeah, apparently they put a cloth belonging to one of the Wright brothers, like, I don't know, first flying craft or something. I don't know if someone in the chat can verify this information, but again, I think it's just speculation that I heard it somewhere. I'm not sure if you know about this.
No, I didn't. I didn't. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, it's pretty cool if that's. I mean, I guess
Because they got a drone going on there too, right?
right. Well, I mean,
Um,
yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice, when generations later, different scientists pay homage to their predecessors in a way,
mhm.
because there's always been this. Um, I don't want to change the subject. I just want to mention this quickly because I believe it will take us off subject.
Yeah.
Like for example, the rainbow colored apple half bitten out of the original Apple logo from Apple computers.
Hmm.
Well, a lot of have if you've read anything about Alan Turing, he was gay at at that time, and he in England, it was illegal, and so they, I guess, put him on some kind of inhibiting drugs that basically it chemically castrates you, which is horrible on its own. But what really got to him is that the way he thought, it was hindered, and he just couldn't live with himself any longer, being that inhibited from being able to do the work that he was doing. And so basically, the in one of the books, it stated that because his mom was very religious and Catholic, and if you kill yourself, you go to you go to hell. He didn't want
Mhm.
that on her, so he injected an apple with cyanide and ate it, so that it looked like it was food poisoning, so that she doesn't think that he's in hell. Anyway. And so then you see the story, the story of Alan Turing, and then you see Apple doing that, and then them kind of from the beginning claiming, no, 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 that's not what it was about at all. It's like, really? You know what I mean? It's one of those things. I mean, at least if NASA put the cloth in there and they're being obvious about it, that's nice. But that's one of those little references about Apple computers too, where I believe they were trying to pay homage, but why they don't want to own up to it, I don't know.
Hmm. Interesting. Before you were speaking on this, I was gonna ask you, just like going back to UFO community, have you heard about the channel? What is it called? Shoot, now it's getting out of my head. Source. Let me look it up here. Sorry,
Sure.
Secure Team. There we go. Secure Team 10 or something.
Yes, I've heard of
Uh,
them. Yeah.
yeah, so I subscribe to them. I'm not trying to like or sorry, plug their channel in like,
Oh no, please do. I mean, why not?
but I think like there's a lot of content that the creator of that channel, he compiled a bunch of videos, throughout the years, and for the chat here, just for the sake of people, if they want to get some video sightings and stuff like that, I think that channel has a lot of cool videos, I would say. With nowadays with technology, CGI, and all these things, a lot of things, you can question, but I take everything with a grain of salt. I don't say everything is, for sure, the real deal, but there's definitely some footage that I'm like, wow, interesting, right? To say the
Right, right.
least.
Well, no, I mean, just for anyone watching this, and even just to give feedback to you, I mean, if there's channels out there that some find interesting, please do plug them. I mean, I honestly don't care, because for one, I don't have a monopoly on UFOs, and what I do
Hmm.
is a very specific way. It's mainly based on my own experiences and how I wanted to go about doing what I do. And I should take that back. It's more about how I was downloaded to do what I do, and so it's not. I don't know why anyone would ever not want to. I guess if you are in the interest of helping people out and educate them, then you ought to understand you're not the only educator. There's many people
Right.
out there. So it's like, so to kind of claim a monopoly on certain things, I think I don't know, it's just silly to me. But yeah,
No,
so for
we
anyone
should have a
watching, and
broad.
yeah, don't ever hesitate to just say something out there, because if what you can't find here, you might find it there. And so
Hmm.
that's always welcome.
Yeah, so I stumbled upon your channel quite a few years ago. I started recently. I think you were off for like a bit and then came back. So I've never seen you do like one of these live shows before. So
Yeah,
really
no,
appreciate what
this
you're doing.
this all started just literally a month ago, because I had, I've been doing these interviews in person, and just filming them in the way you've seen them, with just wherever, go to a hotel room, set up the background, get set up the lighting, and then before I even get there, I already have several interviews lined up, because I didn't want to get there and then maybe hope I could get somebody. So anyway, so I've been doing that for quite a bit, and then um I was thinking, well, I always go to these different conferences to I guess get the interviews and set up in hotel rooms, and it's become very tedious. I mean, some of these conferences, it's like they don't necessarily have all the space for media. So like few interviews, I'm glad nobody was able to tell. I literally did them in a pantry closet, you know and it was just, there were cans and all of that stuff that were stored for this place that they were using as a pantry, and I just put the backdrop in there, worked the lighting, and just let the interview turn out the way it did. But it becomes a bit tedious having to constantly not having a secure way to deal, to be able to do an interview. So I thought, well, why not see if I can set up some events, or let's set up like UFO Hub lecture series, which we did 2 years ago, I think 2019 or so, late 2019. Well, anyway, and that was going in such a difficult way because I wanted to set up the lecture series to where I can bring people in, stream the lectures, and then have the lectures individually available to be watched, and I would get some interviews out of them too. So then that way there's constantly content just going out there. Well, everything I was trying to do with that, the conference turned out great, but not to the point where it could sustain itself to do another one. Just basically the turnout wasn't that great, although everyone loved it being there because I set the conference up exactly how I wanted, with like actual tables so you can rest and not just sit in a tight chair. Had coffee and snacks and food there ready, so you could just go up there, drink some coffee, listen, get up, ask some questions. Exactly how I always wanted to participate in conferences. Anyway, long story short, that was the whole point of that. That didn't work out. So then I was like, well, we've been struggling with where we live. It's a very small space. It's like I guess you call it a double wide, and there's not enough room. We have a third kid come, on the way, and there's just no room. All the closets have been taken up. And so I kept suggesting to my wife, well, I could build something to where I can use it as a studio, which is this now, and I can make a storage room as well. And so anyway, when I wanted to do that, that kind of came together. It's immediately kind of all the doors opened that way, where everything I wanted to do here, the doors were shut. And I was surprised because every step I took, it's like, no, I want to do this. No, I want to do that. No, but I want to go this direction. It's like, yes, 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 everything is possible, And so I just went that way instead, following that intuition. And little did I know that about a year and a half later, upon completing this, which then that was my hiatus of no videos, nothing happening, you know, um, uh, uh, COVID hit, and then it all made sense to me why it happened the way it happened, because now I'm doing this from here and I'm able to have it and do over Skype and bring in people that way, instead of having to physically set up these events all the time, which would have been a lot more tedious and a bit more difficult. Not that I in the future will not do it, but that is one of the reasons why I just, I've always just done personal interviews, and then when this happened, it just kind of forced me to then be in front of the camera, because I was always behind the camera up until I first spoke in Kansas City a few years back. I don't think anybody knew who was behind UFO Hub.
I don't think I knew either. I think I saw your face speaking at that conference, if I'm not mistaken, and then that's when I could potentially put a face to the channel. But
Right.
yeah, like you were saying, you have to adjust, and I think your perseverance, did so well that you are still continuing this UFO Hub. If I may put you on the spot, is there anything that you haven't shared so far in regards to your own personal experiences with either UFO or spirituality or something like that?
I think I don't know if it was it somebody else. I would think it was about 2-3 weeks ago that we're doing this
Mhm.
show, and there is something, but there's still, I'm trying to work it out on my own still to figure it
Mhm.
out, because it I don't, fear is, as Dolores Cannon always used to say, fear is for entertainment purposes only, And so there was something that had occurred, something that had happened that I learned a lot from, but it left me with a lot of fear and despair. And
Mhm.
and I don't want to put that out there. I mean, no more than what I just said, because I've been working on it, trying to truly understand it, get beyond that, because everything I've ever experienced, I always had this huge fear, despair, all of this stuff, and then eventually kind of turned into this beautiful flower that I could just then see the whole picture. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. And so I always had to overcome those hurdles, as I call them. So I feel like I'm in that hurdle now, and when I get through it, I would be more than happy to discuss it.
Mhm.
And but yeah, no,
I didn't.
there always is. It's just
Okay.
I didn't, because if I say it in the way I say it now, and if you are really hanging on every word that I say, I don't want to leave you hopeless, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, no worries. I just
Yeah.
wanted to see if any other positive things that you haven't mentioned up to this point. But yeah.
Yeah, they always start out negative though. That one thing I can tell you. They'll, a lot of times, because then you are filtering it through your own mechanism. And then you're going through all these different processes and all this stuff. And um that creates a lot of fear. Only then when you keep at it and finally overcome this difficulty, do you understand the bigger picture, and then it becomes a huge positive. But not many people are willing to do that. And I'm not scolding anyone for it. It's just how my mind works. It's like, okay, I don't know if it's a macho thing. It's like, I don't like fear, I don't like being afraid. It's like, so if I'm afraid, why? So I just ask why until it finally break through and it's revealed.
Hmm.
But so anyway, no, Carlos, I'd love to chat with you, and we'll continue. Let me just ask anyone else that's in Telegram or would like to share any of their stories or talk to me. Please just raise your hand, or there's a little button that raises the hand for you, and then I know you want to chat. Um, Carlos, Bradley wanted to be on. I hope you don't mind, and if there's more time later, I'd love to come back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, not at all. Thank you so much for having me. I'm
No,
glad,
I
Brad.
appreciate you, starting out the conversation. I'm grateful for that.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, have a nice night.
Don't go away. I might get back to you later.
I'll be here. No worries.
Okay, let's see. Oh, it just keeps shifting on me. Mute. Bradley, I believe you're on. If you unmute yourself, just go on and start sharing.
Yeah, just hi everyone. Adnan and I were talking a little bit earlier. There is just one little thing I'd like to share with everyone, just to as a affirmation if this ever happens to anybody else. Uh, a few days ago, we had a family member pass, and the thing to share about this story is the day before she passed, she was saying that one of her children were in the room. And of course, yeah, these things sound silly, but when you look back, it's quite interesting, because all of our family members, before they passed, they've all told me the exact same thing. That some other family member was there waiting for them. Um, I don't know about anybody else, but to me, that's quite a positive thing. I think it's a nice thing to look forward to.
Yeah, Bradley, my condolences again. I know we talked about it a bit earlier before the show began, and I appreciate you still, logging in and being here with us. I was kind of confirming, just for anyone else that wasn't preview to our conversation earlier, is that I had a good friend of mine, and I believe Nathan would know him. Rick, he kind of volunteered to work at this place where they why can't I remember? It's um, people basically that are in the last stages, and there's no other help for them medically. Hospice, basically. He was volunteering at these different hospice places, and something that uh, he described was, very much the same thing like you said, Bradley, is that they he noticed within a day or two, if somebody would tell him about that they saw a loved one or a relative come to them, that usually soon after they pass. And I wonder if somebody has done more of extensive research in some way or another about that, to see if if there's more to it, if that's kind of like, a worldwide thing. But then again, as you said earlier, you're in South Africa, I'm in the United States, and that's pretty far apart, and there's identical stories to be told. So there's something to it.
Yeah, Adnan, forgive me, I'll go off on a tangent in a second.
Sure.
Um, if we take things into context, like you were mentioning DMT earlier, um, they say that DMT is released before, moments of death, or maybe in this case it was a day early. Who knows? Because this person was on a lot of heavy pain medication. And, you know, if you think about that, that's sort of the catalyst, it seems, to sort of invoke these experiences, or maybe just to see. I don't know. Um, I think that's maybe something that's got to do with it. I mean, because DMT, like you say, there are natural ways to go about it. I don't think it'll be as potent as doing ayahuasca, but there are definitely natural ways to do things.
Right. Oh, okay. Is that what you were going to say? I thought when you meant a tangent to go off on something a lot longer than that.
I was going to, but I think I'll bore everybody with that, so I gave it a miss.
Well, uh, Riley, what's interesting is something that's been happening. So I don't know, I can't talk about it much now, but within the greater family and my in-laws, there's a lot going on, and so there's, let's just say, individual or several individuals that are, related to Dolores Cannon, that there's some disputes going on, let's just say that. And so anyway, it's been a long process, 2-3 years in the making. And what was interesting is that my wife and I, at different times and long enough apart to where I had already forgotten what she told me, but we both dreamt something similar to where Dolores was part of our dreams, and she was there and present, and she was kind of with us, and she was kind of like came back to life, so to say, and we were all telling her what had occurred, what had happened, and she was kind of, to let her know, like, we made sure that this individual doesn't keep doing these certain things that could be potentially damaging. But anyway, so my wife had dreamt something similar to that, and I did as well. And it's funny that in real life this process is coming to a conclusion, and it's almost like a premonition, so to say, that we weren't before we weren't too sure where it's going to go, but with her all of the sudden entering our dreams, and we're kind of talking and discussing in these ways, it was almost like a signal that this is slowly coming to an end, and sure enough, it's almost there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's amazing how these things happen. I mean, just mentioning Dolores, just for me personally, I think when it comes to the content she put out, I don't think there's nothing I haven't seen or heard from her, or read for that fact, except I think the last book. And same for your content. I've watched everything over and over and over. And you were mentioning earlier, sort of about, well, in a previous cast as well, you were mentioning about connecting dots. I'm not quite there, but you're right. Whether we're speaking of dreams or physical reality, it's just at some point everything does connect. It's strange how it works.
Right. But if I may share, and if I'm not being too bold, I don't know if you heard my experience, but when I had my near death experience, it was it was something that obviously no one expects to ever really come back from it, but it was interesting how um there was no there was no there was no pain, there was no worry, There was no sorrow. It was simply like a suit has just been taken off. It's gone, and all there is just this peaceful, tranquil state of being, that then you can kind of start to analyze and think about whichever new direction you want, that but uninhibited, to where before you always would think about planetary things with consequences. Like if I do this, this is going to happen. If I do that, then this is going to occur. And there's always consequences in some way. And so we either move forward or backwards based on those consequences, whereas on the other side there's just absolutely none of that. And um what I was just going to say is that, if there's one thing that's for sure, is that um we are more in pain now of being alive than and worrisome than they would ever be. Like they've already moved on, and to a point to where they just they can just take whatever direction they want to take next, and without having to worry about all the things that we are still stuck with here.
Adnan, forgive me for saying this, but you and I don't exactly originate from first world countries. So, we, how do I put it, younger life, we got used to things a little bit different compared to most people probably watching your show right now. When you speak of action and consequence, to me, what I find fascinating about this whole thing that we call humanity, and I speak from my heart, not from, stuff I've heard. When I think of all the suffering and everything that's gone on, usually um, it's some bad definition that we've created, or it's some bad definition that somebody else has created for us. Um, you know, the actual incidents that really create suffering is actually very, very minimal.
Yeah.
Um, you, barring economic, how do I put it, economic backlash, like hunger and homelessness. That's a very different topic. But when I look overall at the average person, most of our suffering is just self-created. I mean, I'm so guilty of this in my life. I think we all are. We all do it. So when you say, in that state, people are, as you say, they're in the state of tranquility. I believe you. I mean, I never had a near-death experience, but I had an experience, one which was drug-induced. And I can't say I was in a conscious state, but I had an experience where you were aware of certain things, and I'm not talking about seeing, like hallucinations, but you were just, there's no other thing of just saying you were just aware. And you sort of, you feel like you snap back to reality. So yeah, I can relate to what you're saying there.
Right. Well, yeah, the thing is, I think just the way the mind, or this character, which that's all we all are, and eventually we just stop playing this character. It doesn't like negative things, and so it creates this entire world and environment based on all these negative possibilities, from which it needs to guard itself. you know and it's those things that often just kind of they sneak up on you, to where, like you said, you don't realize that you created them. This worrisome is something you started out, and only you can stop it. But we think, then make it into something that it's outside of our control, and it's out there and always be out there, and all we can do is just still suffer, but either we can mitigate, whether it's a lot or less. And I just I wish that people would come to an understanding on their own, to where they can just realize, like, just come straight down to your belief system, change the way you look at something, and it will change, the way you interact with it.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm going to share a very quick personal story on
Sure.
that because when I was very young, um, I had a girlfriend whose father was basically he was a known murderer. He'd been convicted for stuff and whatnot. And anyway, long story short, uh, I don't know, I did something to really pee this guy off one day. And he said to me, "Oh, I'm going to come get you. I'm going to come get you." And I remember sitting in my office in fear, and you're thinking, is this guy coming? Is he not coming? And then eventually I said, you know what? What happens, happens. And then after that, I confronted the guy and I said, well, we can sort things out like this. And that was the end of it. Fear was gone. There was no situation to handle, you know.
Right.
But what I'm playing at is that if I went with the mental construct, I could have gone home and sat in my room and locked myself up in total fear, thinking, oh my God.
Right. Right. You know, uh, that was, one of the things when I first moved to Robertsville, when I first moved out of my parents' house and bought a house, and when all of this basically began for me, just being by myself in the woods. One of the things that were constantly was turning into quite a fear was that somebody would break in and take the little that I have, right? And
Yeah.
I just constantly kept just thinking about it, and all these other things were just constantly, every time I went, I was trying to put a security system in and all these other things. And so this was something that was interesting, talking about some of the things I've shared in the past, but I'll just use it as an experience that actually was like a perfect reflection to me at that time, understanding how this whole interaction between all of us interacting with each other's work. So I had some of the experiences by the certain point where I just realized we're playing a role for each other, right? And so I was understanding, okay, well, that means I'm I'm attracting what I'm attracting with, because of these emotions that are just vibrating into this strong signal toward that I attract whatever it is that I fear. You attract whatever it is that you love, everything, whatever it is you immediately attracted to you. Well, one of my strongest that was over and over and over happening was being broken into. So then I realized that that was happening, and then I got broken into, right? And as I was at the house, I see the broken door and all of this stuff, and I'm standing in the room, and as I'm thinking about this, I could almost feel and sense the people that broke into my place. And it was almost like, you know, there you go. Now you have the experience of what it feels like being broken into. You've been fearing this all this time, right? I'm pretty sure they had no idea that this is what was going on in on this different level. To them, they were just doing things as every other criminal does. But it was something that it was a it was an understanding that it was very hands-on. It was, I could almost have an immediate reflection of, this is what you felt, well, here it is for you. And so I worked on a great deal on overcoming that and overcoming these different fears. And so then I was like, okay, well, I think I understand this. I don't have that fear anymore. I mean, if something happens, which is, fine, because now I'm not accessing it from this fearful, I'm a victim point of view, right? And then soon after I came to that realization, I got broken into again, right? And it was like, and I was just looking at it, and I could only just kind of like laugh, because I understood now why it was happening again, because it was like a another echo that had occurred. And now I got a chance to then say, okay, I got over this feeling. I understand my emotions. I'm okay with that. Bam, it happens again. It's almost like a test. Like, are you really okay with that? Right? And so, and I now perfectly was. I just, because there was nothing that was taken that I didn't need. It was everything I just had left over, because I had this huge place, single person, 5-bedroom house. My parents, everything they had kept giving me stuff because they had it, taking up space in their house. Well, anyway, none of that was needed. And I was perfectly okay with that. Like, that fear wasn't holding on to me anymore. And then sure enough, I get a call. This was like 2-3 months later, that eventually they got caught, because they had stolen enough things and enough weapons from different people to where now it became a federal matter, and then the FBI was after them, and found them. And do you want to know the very funny part about that? Is that I've actually met them. And here's how. Prior to their arrest, maybe about a week or two before I found out that they were arrested, I was driving, and I always stop by whoever needs help. If I can give them a ride, I give them a ride. If they need some gas, I always had about a 2 gallon jug of gas in my trunk because I always run low, and that I'll have something to fill it back up. Well, they were on the side of the road, pulled over, and it looked like they had that they were out of gas. And sure enough, then I saw a guy basically holding on a sign. And so I stopped. I went up there and I said, "Do you guys need gas?" And like, "Yes," And so there was 2 guys and this girl, and I wasn't asking much about where they're going, what they're doing, but I gave them, um, the jug, and he filled it up. And I was like, "Oh, pretty hot today. I'm glad that you'll be able to turn on the car here pretty soon and get the air conditioning and whatnot." And anyway, that was I actually interacted with the people that had broken into my place, not realizing only later when they were arrested, and because what they stole is I had a shotgun and some other stuff there, but it was the shotgun that was traced. And so they basically were identified that way. And I just, there was anyone that in general you could have simply had that experience of just have that fearful experience, I got broken into, be the victim for the rest of your life, or have the experience in the manner I chose to have it by simply figuring out what's happening, why is it happening, and what can I do about it.
You know, what you said there is quite, given what's happening in my life at the moment, it's quite the message to hear. There's, yeah, uh, I'll reflect on that because, as we spoke earlier, I won't make it public here, but I mean, that's some very wise words there. Thank you.
Well, I wish it was just this wisdom that was just given in some way. It was all stuff I had to do the hard way, through a lot of, fear and all kinds of silliness. Um, but Bradley, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Looks like my friend Nathan wants to come on as well. So, if you hang around, I'll get back to you, later on if and when Nathan and I finish up.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks very much, Adnan.
No, thank you. Thank you for chatting. Okay, get that. All right, Nathan, just unmute yourself and you're on.
Yeah, hey Anon. No, I just wanted to chime in because what you were saying is like I feel like you hit the nail right on the head. How humanity's going to get through this time, this 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 whole pandemic time and stuff is
Right.
yeah, like overcoming fear. Like it's what it is. They're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at us to be afraid of, and it's become so obvious that those are the chains that these occultist cabal, whatever you want to call them, people use to keep people chained down. Basically, is
Right.
fear.
Well,
It becomes
Nathan,
so ridiculous.
hold on one quick second before you continue, and for everyone else watching, Nathan is a really good friend of mine. I consider him one of my best friends. So he was all over the place. I guess what you were in Ecuador or Colombia, and then came back to St. Louis.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we were in Ecuador for a couple months. Just got back recently.
Anyway, so I just want to give a little context there. So because we just started talking, and I realized you guys might not know. So Nathan, I'm sorry. Continue with what you were saying.
Good. What was okay? So yeah, I was just you hit the nail right on the head with the getting over the fears thing, and then and kind of how it's done. So, I mean, just and that'll help raise the whole vibration of first you, and then everything around you, and even something you said even earlier in that, like, well, like, uh, love attracts love, fear attracts fear. Is that how you
Yeah.
said it? Yeah. So let's just put more love out there, get and stop being afraid of all this ridiculous stuff. Like, I mean, it's just gotten preposterous, and and that'll help. That's I mean, because other than that, we're
Well,
gonna have to
right.
wait
Well,
for Trump.
it doesn't always have to be, I think what a lot of us, don't dare to do is just kind of live in our own way, because a lot of times when something comes down the pike to where everyone in the group has to follow, everyone else kind of falls in line. And the thing is, it's everything should also be done in a very reasonable way, meaning what I'm about to do, is this going, against possibly someone else's well-being, or is this just something that'll affect me, right? And so one of the things that I've noticed when everything started, and just not that I was planning to get into this conversation, but hey, the channel it's open lines for whatever else you would like to discuss, whether and I was thinking about maybe putting out a video with just this focused message about this, because it's it's something that's been weighing heavily on my mind. Us being involved in this field of UFOs, and dealing with the government, and them never being honest with us, and all the things that are out there that some people still depend on or want to depend on the government to tell them about UFOs. We've always had this mistrusting relationship, right? But so then when 9/11 came around, our mindsets was looking at 9/11 entirely differently than a person watching it through CNN or MSNBC and everything else. And then when the pandemic hit, or again, we're looking at everything differently than everyone else that's quote unquote normal would look at, And so there's all these things that then we would ask to say, well, why aren't you considering this regarding that subject? And why aren't you considering that regarding this subject? To where the mainstream mindset would just be like, well, I don't know. That's what they said, so I'll just do it. But our thinking or level of thinking is like 2-3 levels deep, And it's one of these things to where if you understand that, and there's an opposite point of view that you have, try to show it by just simply living it, right? Because when it comes to sharing stories about UFOs, I would just share them without any fear of repercussions. When it comes to talking about the pandemic, I would just talk about it without any fear of repercussions. And a lot of times it would get me in these situations with people to where they want to argue with me about it. And so I simply broke it down, and this one particular conversation was, they were saying, this is the only thing you need to know about the pandemic. I said, well, hold on a minute. When you go to a doctor and they analyze you and discover something, you go to another doctor, get a second opinion, to sometimes even third or fourth opinion before you can make up your mind and say, okay, this is what I want regarding my health. Well, for some reason, this narrative was allowed when it comes to epidemic, but this narrative was not. And believe me, this direction, there's a lot to look into that most people don't know, and I just basically started living and moving around in my life according to this information that I understood and knew, that were given by thousands of other doctors that are available at your fingertips, to be researched, to be looked up, to look up their credentials and what it is that they're saying. And the fact that they weren't allowed to spoke loudly than everything else, because never in our history would you think that the world has a problem but you can only look at it in one way. It's like having a coin, but you can only look at one side, and that just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just kind of finished my train of thought, and I thought you were going to add something to that.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's been weighing heavy on my mind too. And actually, you've helped me put some things into perspective. So it's and this is it. This. I mean, yeah, you gotta just talk with everybody openly and freely without fear. And that's a big step. But like platforms like this is fantastic. What you're doing, Anon, is fantastic. How you got here, you're sharing your stories,
Thank you. I
and
appreciate it.
yeah, it's all fantastic.
Well, hey, do tell me while I have you on, because some of you that are watching, like I mentioned, I know Nathan from St. Louis, and we were going to the different meetings, UFO meetings. There would be 2, 3 a week. I mean, not a week, a month that we would go to, because there's the Coasties, there's the MUFON meetings, and all these different ones that we would always attend. Have you been attending any of them, or what's it looking like in St. Louis right now?
Well, in St. Louis, I mean, uh, I think it keeps going back and forth. Right now, everything's kind of you're not allowed to meet. You know, like you're not allowed to really. I guess it depends on where you are. You know, but no, the meetings I haven't been to any of those in quite a while.
Okay,
Like the ones you're talking about, though.
right. Well, I was reaching out to some of the organizers of those meetings, and I told them, hey, I have these Wednesday nights open lines, so if they would like to attend and meet up online in a way and share over the phone using Telegram, that would be an option. You know, I guess because I know Coasties wasn't meeting anymore, and or at least they're going to hopefully soon, but we'll see.
Okay, so yeah, in lieu of a physical meeting place, this works. This works great. So you actually talked to a couple of the organizers, like Ray and stuff, or Ray's not around anymore, is he?
No, Ray is not, but Ginger is.
Okay.
And yep, I talked to her because she's the for those of you that are watching that are living in St. Louis, she helped me out. Was it the bowling alley on Watson? Um,
Yes.
Nathan. Okay, so for those of you living in St. Louis, the bowling alley Sunset, I believe it's called on Watson. Once a month, I believe it was the first Monday a month, they would meet and basically discuss any subjects that were discussed on Coast to Coast or are generally discussed on Coast to Coast. And so usually a lot of people will go there and attend. And then there's some other meetings. I think second Monday of the month is, or third Monday of the month is MUFON, which is in Webster Groves. So I apologize for any of you that don't live anywhere close to there and that makes no sense. But at least, hey, we got this platform right now to just discuss and chat about whatever it is on our mind. So, yeah, Nathan, do you would you like to share some of your stories that I know you have out there, or maybe some other time? I don't
Yeah,
want to
maybe
put you
some
on
other.
the spot. Okay,
I'll because there were several things I wanted to share when you guys were talking, but and then we just kept going and going, and I lost track. So
right.
I'll try to jot some things down, and then maybe next week I'll share some stories.
Right. All right. Well, you know you're always welcome. And yeah, this is what the first time I've actually talked to you. I know we texted, but man, it's been
Yeah,
years
been a
since
couple
I've
of years.
seen you. When was
Yeah,
the
it's
last
probably
time
been.
I've seen you? Since the wedding?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
No,
No, oh, we saw you one other time.
that's all right.
Oh, oh, wait, there's
My, my,
somebody else on the line.
yes, my wife is here.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Just listen to your interview. It's very interesting.
Oh, but that's cool. I'm Jessica, right? I was it cracks me up every time because every time you see me, like you look like my uncle.
Yeah, like they say are like twins or person that look very similar to other person in the planet. I say my uncle and you
Oh wow.
are that look like the same.
Well, that's good to know
He's
that I have a doppelganger there somewhere.
like yeah.
Well, good to hear from you as well. Oh, I don't know if I'm pretty sure they're still there. So anyway, any of you watching, join us on Telegram. Simply download the app on your phone or on the computer, and you can set up an account using your phone or an email. And once you have done that, search for UFO Hub, and you should be able to find this group. And then you can just join the voice chat and be part of it. And so anyway, welcome to chat with anyone else that's already chatting in the YouTube chat. I don't know what's been going on there. I just know it's just been going up and down. But well, Nathan, let me bring Bradley in and unless there's something else you would like to say.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well,
Nice
good to
talking to
hear.
you.
Yeah, good to hear from both of you. We should actually talk one of these days, like offline.
I agree.
Okay.
Talk to you.
Okie doke. Let me see here. There we go. Okay, Bradley, you're unmuted and go on whenever you're ready.
Yeah, just listening to Nathan there. It's not a long thing. Just he's talking about the pandemic and how, you know, we're all being fed a bunch of, I thought without to swear, can I say bullshit?
Yeah, you definitely
So,
can.
you know, just from a South African perspective, you know, this country is really riddled with a very bad past and a lot of tensions, and you know, that still exists today. Not as bad, but I mean, it's still there. And just to be positive, I mean, during the pandemic, I've seen people come together in a way I've never seen before. Don't get me wrong, the problems are not solved, but you know, when people just put aside all the rubbish and actually just really help each other, that's really, you know, that's where things are going here, which is great. You know, we had a lady here help another family who, you know, couldn't afford food because they didn't have a job because of this pandemic. And,
Hmm.
you know, she took, I think, just to put a value to it, she took about, what was it, 5 to 10,000 rand, which is about $800, and just went and took them shopping. I mean, it's
Right.
been fantastic. So anyway, I had to chime that in because yeah, I totally agree with what Nathan's saying there.
Well, it's I'm really glad. I'm glad and very happy to know that that had occurred at least where you are. It's just unfortunate that I don't know. I guess if the whole world is watching via news what's been happening in the United States, but it's done the opposite. At least in the past there were always events that could unite us. But this pandemic and politics have literally divided brother against brother, friend against friend, and this is, years and years of decades long friendships and relationships that are just basically on the verge of being fully broken apart, or have already separated a long time ago. It literally it separated itself between those with masks and no masks, those who want to get vaccinated, those that don't want to get vaccinated, those that are for Republicans, those that are for Democrats. And it's just been going all these directions. And it would be nice to find something, a unifying factor, because initially when the pandemic started, it was all about, wow, what can I do as a human being to help my fellow man, my fellow neighbors, whatever can be possible. But I guess we've all allowed the news here in the United States to then start giving us a separate narrative, to where now we can literally be living next to each other, and then you have someone else that's hundreds of miles away via news giving you different information that now makes you think about that person differently. Instead of going up to them and saying, hey brother, how are you, what can I do, can we help each other, or whatever, or just to say, know that you can depend on me, that now was not possible, because um, it was a perfect signal. It was this perfect example how so many people say, oh, I don't watch the news, that's all rubbish and blah 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 blah, but yet they act exactly as the news tells them to act, and follow, almost verbatim of what they're being told. And so I always had thought that when I first got into this UFO subject, that I always thought it would be, this divide would happen between the people that believe that there's more out there, like UFOs, aliens, and the spiritual level, and those that don't. And I always thought that, well, one way to remedy that is, well, eventually, if we make contact, they're going to land, and my fellow brothers and sisters are going to see that, so they know I wasn't crazy, and I was telling them what some of us had already experienced ahead of time, right? So I thought that that would be the dividing factor. Never did I think that it would be something like this, to where it divides us, to where it's very difficult to come back together, because you know it you know again, like I was mentioned earlier, I just don't know what could be possibly, what can be said to bring people together, because I love them regardless, but the thing is, I often found that there is, the way they live and what they're requiring of me, is that there is no space for me there. But where I am at, there's plenty of space for them here, and the way I like to see the world and go about the world. And so anyway, I just want to get that out there. I just don't, I'm glad to hear that something like that was happening, at least in South Africa. I'm sure everywhere else, but we hardly saw any of that here in the United States because it was very divisive from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll tell you from a personal perspective. I moved cities in literally the day of lockdown, and when I got here, there was no furniture or anything, and the community here, they don't know me from a bar of soap, and we had a fully furnished apartment here. It was fantastic. And then, like I say, since that whole lockdown happened, it was the same scenario where people could help, they could help. I mean, even in business, where people were earning commissions, the first thing they were talking about is how much percentage can we take to donate. I mean, nobody asked anybody to do this. Nobody's instructed to do this. This was all just people being people.
Good.
Um, it doesn't solve the problems, but it's a hell of a good step in the right direction.
Right, right. Yeah, it's I don't know if so many times when we all talk about somebody being asleep and someone being awake, you know, it's it has never been more apparent who's awake and who's asleep during this pandemic, you know, because the information is there, but how you look at that information and how you choose to interpret it is what's actually dividing a lot, because you can literally have two people next to each other looking at some data, and one would say this, the other one would say that. But I noticed where one has said, okay, we can agree to disagree, but you're still my brother. The other one would say, I will have nothing to do with you, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
correct.
and that's what's so weird about that is that it to see that full divide. And it's because everyone always wants to talk about love and always wants to talk about getting together, but you know where is the love? Like, if I'm not wearing the mask and you're spitting at me because I'm not wearing the mask, where's the love? Right? Are you willing to understand and listen to what I have to say and what I've seen that you were not privy to? Right? And all these things that are not, I guess, generally publicly shared. All they know is like, government said this, do as you told or else. And then I think that's very sad, especially for the American mindset that, as Americans, we always just, live our lives in this way that, like I was saying several weeks back, like Americans in a very good way have this fuck you mentality. It's like,
Yeah,
in anything they do. It's like, when I lived in Germany, Germans, are very, like, let's say about to start a business, they would look at the cost analysis, do projections, figure things out, and sometimes not even start before they would not even go anywhere. Basically, it'll end before it even started, right? Because they logically analyzed it and said, okay, well, this is not feasible. We can't do this. We're going to go out of business in 2 years. So let's find something else, right? Which is perfectly think about. In America is the only place where I've seen they're like, we have no plan, we have no money, let's do it. You know?
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, what you're talking about, just going to the masks. You know, like I mentioned, you just got to bear in mind that a lot of South Africans, especially the black community,
Right.
with what they've been through in the past, they're not educated people normally. So in South Africa, the mentality is if you're a black guy, you work in security or you work in, I don't want to call them menial jobs because they're not menial jobs, but they low qualification jobs. Um, so anyway, with the masks, I mean, like you were saying in the beginning, they were saying, well, please put your mask over your nose, and we would say, no, you're crazy, sorry, not happening. And there would be this like huge public outcry, and they can't understand why. And I just thought about this. It must be confusing as anything to someone who doesn't know. But look, as time went on, people actually just educated each other, and these problems went away. I mean, it was
Right.
amazing to see. So, from my perspective, it's so easy to say, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, but you always overlook at what's right,
Right.
you
Right.
know? So from where I'm standing, I just saw some amazing things. It's how do I put it? It's not all roses, but there was so much good to see.
Right. But that's good. I'm glad. I'm really glad to hear that. And, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Um,
no, sorry, I had in the 2 cents worth there, Adnan. It's just
no,
with this
that's
pandemic.
yeah. No, don't be sorry. That's exactly why we're here. I'm just trying to, um, because it's smaller group on Telegram. It's like I just give more time to people chit chatting, back and forth. If there were more, that would want to speak, maybe in the future I would have to limit the amount of time and then get back to that person maybe later or something. But there's no reason for excuse. We're just literally hanging out online, because I don't know, just like doing what we do. I like doing what I do, and you guys find some value in that, so I'm glad you all here. So you know don't apologize.
Yeah, no. As I say, thank you for the platform, Nathan. No, thanks for bringing that up because I know everybody's different around the world and how we're experiencing things, but for me, I really there's a lot of bad, but I mean, I saw a lot of good, and that's really what I want to convey.
Right. I just want to put the info out there. So if any of you watching this who would like to maybe share your story, whatever it is that you would like to talk about, generally we discuss, UFO, spirituality, metaphysics, but sometimes we cover other things like we did today. So, the topics are, endless. Of course, we always like to talk about the good and weird stuff when it comes to aliens, so you're always welcome to share those stories. But yeah, just log in, raise your hand if you would like to share some of your stories, and we'll chat. If you just want to use Telegram to just listen, since this is also simultaneously being broadcasted there, then just tune in and enjoy listening on your device that way. But yeah, so Bradley, is there anything else that you would like to discuss, or maybe take a direction you would like to go into?
Yeah, no, forgive me tonight, Adnan. On any other occasion I would have, but yeah, let's just say my head's not right tonight, so
It's
I'll give it a pass.
understandable.
And
It's
anybody else can
understandable.
jump in.
Well, thank you for still taking the time, and being here with us. I offer you my condolences, and just hang in there. You know, by being part of the UFO Hub group, I'm more easily accessible than any other platform because that directly is connected to me. So anyone that ever wants to send me messages, or even dial in through that using the the voice chat, can do that. So you're always welcome to reach out that way.
Yeah, no, as I say, I just want to say thank you. I mean, I followed you from, the first time you published your first video, and it's, yeah, I won't stop. It's not about a groupie thing. It's just I really enjoy the subject, and
Yeah,
like you
thank
say,
you.
you're accessible.
I appreciate it. All right, well, Bradley, I'm gonna mute you, and then I'll put new paradigm think tank on. Let me see here. Okay, all right. New paradigm, you're on. Just unmute yourself, and you're open to talk.
Hello, thank you. Hey, it's the first time I am using a voice chat
Good
ever.
deal. Welcome.
So,
You're also broadcasted on YouTube too, in case you didn't know.
oh, no, I didn't know. I thought
Okay.
it was only the four of us. Oh, jeez.
That's okay. I mean, if you don't, just letting you know in case you didn't know. I mean, you're more than welcome to share whatever you would like. I just mentioned it
All
because you
right.
said, "Oh, I'm, my first time here," and I was like, "Oh, you might not know that this is also being broadcasted." It's in the UFO Hub chat in the window itself. There's a open line link to it. You can click it, and you can see a 20-second delay of me speaking to you now.
Okay, good to know. I'm
Yeah.
almost empty battery on my cell phone.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
so
sorry. Go
I
ahead.
am an
Proceed.
experiencer. And I never really talked about me like that. I decided to do so to reconcile my spiritual and professional identity. So I am now a blockchain developer, and I'm working to develop some platform for free speech, so people like me can have their story told and no one to censor them. So I invite your listeners to explore what the Web 3.0 has to offer, and especially the blockchain technologies, and maybe specifically one of the blockchain I am working on, the Hive blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
Well,
my
if
message
your
for
battery
you
if your
tonight.
battery allows, can you give us a little bit more info? That would be great.
You would like to receive more info?
Yeah, just for you telling us a little more about the, for those that are not too aware, the Web 3.0 and what all that is about.
Okay, well, I am not an expert, but I can tell what I know. It is, let's say, an evolution of the web technology and internet technology. Everything runs on servers, but if those servers are centralized, there's a kill switch that can terminate all internet access to that server. It could be a video data bank or your personal information. Whereas blockchain has some sort of a different way to host data, and that data can be distributed on multiple servers. And theoretically speaking, it's a lot more secure to censorship and banning and or attacks of any sorts in the digital world. We are under a digital war, and protecting data and data access and data distribution in a digital war is very important. So
Right.
blockchain is coming as a solution to all those problems.
What is so the blockchain itself is obviously would you, if I'm understanding correctly, it's independent from the different cryptos out there, correct? Because you can create a blockchain based on anything.
Well, the way I understand it, and all the blockchains that exist have what they call a basic coin or a basic crypto. So like Bitcoin is a Bitcoin.
Oh, so basically, are you saying that the infrastructure, the blockchain on which each crypto is based on, that's the same blockchain being used now to, I guess, develop different things?
Oh, yes. The
Okay.
blockchain, let's say a block is, let's say, 3 minutes of an open book ledger. All the
Right.
transactions that occur on the network are recorded in a ledger. So a block of 3 minutes correspond of all the transactions that occur on the blockchain within that 3 minutes. So that box get encrypted and a new 3-minute block starts. And you cannot read the second block without being able to decrypt the first. And there and so on. You cannot alter the history of a database because
Okay.
it's secure that way.
Well, thank you very much for clarifying that. Would you maybe like to share some of your experiences?
Yeah, well, as an experiencer, well, I have a very creative mind, and sometimes I wonder where that creativity comes from, because it seems to me that there's something possibly pushing thoughts on us, on people, like, insights sometimes.
Right. Well, I mean, I was asking specifically about the experience itself. Would you feel comfortable sharing? When you say experience, are you talking about like UFO alien experiences?
Yeah, all that ESPs, um, weird dreams, out of body experiences, everything that makes the weird and fringe community. I
Right.
experienced it since my childhood, and I rather kept it hidden because
Okay.
the community and judgment from others. But over time, learning about the self empowerment and knowing to learning to honor truth, inner truth, to be in resonance with the inner truth helps one being more aligned with itself, more powerful, and healthy, happy living, you know,
Right, right.
being in harmony with, in coherence with truth and love. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you said this. Can you at least share which general location you're from?
I am from Canada.
Okay, good deal. So, so you don't want to share any of the specific ones now? Just something, give us a little intro to it.
Yeah, well, maybe I could invite people because my story, a big bunch of my story I've already told on Hive blockchain. So those posts, they cannot be deleted. So if I am saying something there that some powers that be don't want me to say, well, it's there anyway. You know?
Right, right.
So instead of me spending a lot of time right now to talk to your listeners, I invite them to Google or something to find a way to access the Hive blockchain and look for the username New Paradigm TT. So that's me for
Quick
New
question.
Paradigm Think Tank.
Are you on Telegram using your computer or the phone?
I am on a phone, almost out of battery. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. You said that earlier. What I was going to say, there's also, because of, I wanted the ability for everyone to be able to comment on the things I post on ufohub. Telegram, for some reason, requires them to set up like a separate, I guess, separate link or room for it. And it's called ufohub chat. So from the main ufohub group, which you are in now, obviously, because we're listening, you know, you would be able to log in. There's ufohub chat, and in there you can just, you know, you can post a link yourself in there, so that anyone else that sees it can visit it and go see what it is. Now, you explain to me what it. I usually discourage things that are pornographic in nature or something disturbing and some silly stuff. But if it's something pertinent to the subject we talked about, I welcome people, you know, to share, you know, something what you just mentioned or other things.
Of course. Thank you. Yes, I'll do. I'll post the link. And I'll say you goodbye and thank you for receiving me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. So if no one else wants to raise their hand and to continue this conversation on Telegram, I guess we can end it today. For today, I'm still trying to figure out some things which had delayed me on trying to find a guest this Friday. But as soon as I have a guest, you will know, because then I'll usually post the stream up there, and you'll be able to see it as part of the page, because it'll be scheduled saying Friday 7 p.m. Central Time, and then it'll show which guest is going to be on. I know I'm having an interview tomorrow, which will be part of the webcast, which I'll post next week, and you'll find out more about that. But I guess maybe it might be too late now, because not enough people are probably aware or are watching right now. But I will most likely going to have a interview or a live show on Monday, just for this one time, at least for next week, because this person that I have not 100% confirmed, I think you guys would like very much, is a very well-known figure in the UFO community, and he cannot do any of the other days, but Monday at 7 p.m. works best for him. So I hope you can tune in and just listen to the interview and then chime in with some questions later on. But yeah, so occasionally, as I mentioned in other shows, I would have to do some odd days where I have, like, let's say a Monday live show, and I'll still have Wednesdays open lines and Fridays live stream as well. But this would be a third live stream for that week, which would be Monday, but it's not 100% confirmed. And once I know that for sure, I'll create again a live stream, put it out there, and it'll be clear that it's happening. Plus, also on the UFO Hub YouTube channel, under the community tab, I like to keep you guys posted as often as I can. So please keep keep a lookout for that, and just anything new will pop out on there. I use some of the other platforms as well, like Facebook and Twitter, but I find it's more engaging using YouTube and the community tab and using Telegram than any of these other platforms. I don't know what's going on, if it's like shadow banning or just less engagement or whatever it is. The point is that I feel like I'm getting to more people using the community tab to post messages there as opposed to any of the other social media. But of course, whatever I post there, I copy and paste it throughout, so that if you are following UFOhub on Facebook or Twitter, you'll still be able to see what's going on. Okay. All right. Well, I guess no one else wants raising their hand to chat, and it sounds like you guys have been having an awesome time in the chat room, going back and forth. Unfortunately, I don't have a moderator, so I'm hoping that things were going okay. I'm working on getting somebody to just kind of keep an eye on the chat, because sometimes some people are constantly being rude or belligerent, to have them basically removed, so that the rest of the group can have a peaceful conversation. But okay, so thank you all very much, everyone on Telegram. Thanks a lot for being on. I really appreciate you, and tune in again next week, and love to chat with you guys. If you like this video, please subscribe or hit a like, which would help with the YouTube algorithm. And of course, share it with your friends and let them know about it if they're just interested in listening, or maybe sharing some of their stories themselves. Let them know how they can do that using Telegram, and that way they'll connect to me directly, and we can discuss the stories. So anyway, everyone in Telegram, have a good day, have a good night, wherever you are. I appreciate it. Everyone in chat on YouTube, thank you all. Have a good day, have a good night. And so tune in Friday, 7 p.m. Central Time. And hopefully by then we'll have a guest secured, and we'll go from there. All right. Have a good night. Thanks again for logging in today.